Alright, so welcome back. Here's where we left off last time. We have our board that has the pieces generated, the pieces are animated, we can destroy pieces and new pieces will fall in. And today we're going to work on a better way to have these matches being found. Now I think I might have done something off video that you might need to do just to make your game look a little bit better. If you go into your room here, what I want to take a look at is the depth. So currently I have my instances at a depth of -500, my foreground, which are the pieces I want to render on top of the instances layer at a depth of -600, my UI is at -700, my frame is at -800, and then my background tile is at +100. The way that Gamemaker works is the smaller, or the, not smaller, but the lower the number, the closer towards the viewer the object is going to appear. So I want my background tiles to be beneath my instances, which has a depth of -500, and that means that I gave them a positive depth. And then my foreground all have negative depths that are higher than that in order of what I want them to appear as. So my foreground is -600, my UI background, which I want to be below that actually, because I want my pieces to look like they're coming in from the top, that has a depth of -700, and then I want the frame to be on top of everything, and so that has the lowest depth. So that's a quick change you might need to make. Okay. Today, what we're going to be doing is making our project in general a little more clean. So the way that we're detecting matches right now is by specifically looking to the left and to the right, which has been working for us so far. However, let me change something here. I did something off camera that I wasn't supposed to. Okay, cool. Which has been working for us so far. However, it's a little messy to do it that way, and to me it doesn't seem super reliable, because what if something happens and the instance itself, the dot that's next to whichever piece we're looking at, what if something happens to that and it moves? Also, this isn't a very good way to do it if you want to try to take your experience with Gamemaker to another language or another system. So let's take a look at a better way to do it that's going to involve scripts and two-dimensional arrays. Now, we could use either a two-dimensional array or a data structure called a grid. We're going to use a two-dimensional array because we're not going to need to resize it, and we don't need to change regions at once, which would be a reason you'd want to use a DS grid. So instead, we're just going to use a plain old 2D array. So let's open up our game manager and let's go to the create event. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a global reference to the grid. And I'm just going to call this grid. We can call it all gems, all dots, whatever we want to, just so that we know that this is the array that is going to hold every piece that's currently on the board. So I'm going to say that, actually, let's do this a different way. Let's do this an even better way. Let's make a script, because we haven't done that yet in this tutorial. So go ahead and open up your side panel, go to your scripts, and create a new script. And I'm going to call this s_create array. Okay, now this script is going to do a few different things. First, it's going to require 2 arguments to be sent in. First is going to be the width of the array. Second is going to be the height of the array. So I'm going to say var height equals argument 0, and var, actually I should do this the other way since I've done width by height everywhere else, and that's what you're supposed to do. So var width equals argument 0, and var height equals argument 1. Now we're going to create the grid. Now I want this array to be something that's reusable, so I can reuse it for other things, like say what I want the blank spaces to be, what I want the jelly tiles to be, what I want the icing and chocolate tiles to be. So I'm going to just create another variable. I'm going to call it var grid, is equal to, actually we'll call this array to make it even more reusable, is equal to, and I want to make just an empty two-dimensional array. Now you don't have to initialize two-dimensional arrays the way that I'm doing right now, in Gamemaker anyway. However, I'm used to doing it in other languages and it just seems cleaner to initialize the array first. So this is how you create a two-dimensional array, is this square bracket, comma, square bracket, to show that we have an x position and a y position, or whatever two variables you want to use, u and v, whatever. We just have two coordinates here. So now we're going to go through a double for loop. So we're going to say for var I is 0, I is less than width, I plus plus, and then we're going to do the same thing for the height. So for j is 0, j is less than height, j plus plus. I want to set that portion of the array to be equal to no one, which is Gamemaker's version of null. So I want to say array I comma j is equal to no one. Now at the end I want to send that array back to whatever called the script. So I'm going to say return array. So I'm just going to send this array back to whatever asked for it. So then up here in my game manager, before I create the game, I'm going to say that my global grid, the grid that can be accessed by anything, is equal to that create array. So global.grid is equal to s underscore create array, and then this takes two arguments. It takes a argument for the width and an argument for the height, and that will create the array. Now when I am creating these objects, what I want to do is after actually I can do it right now. So after I create the object, I'm going to store it in the array in that ij position. So I'm going to say global.grid ij is equal to dot, which will store the instance number of that dot, which is essentially the same thing as storing the dot itself. So I want to say dot.column dot.row. Now by having this grid, it actually makes these while loops I have down here a lot simpler. So instead of having to find the instance position, I can instead find the dot that is to the left. And so that would be global.grid I minus 1j. Instead of having to find the instance position, which is, in my opinion, probably a little less easy to change. So, or easy to get correct. I mean, it seems like it's a little funkier. So then, let's see, why am I getting an error there? I don't want to make a breakpoint. Oh, okay, that's why. I have a syntax error. We'll fix that in a second. So I'm going to replace all of these instance positions with global.grid I minus 2j, and then this is going to be global.grid ij minus 1, and then this is global.grid ij minus 2. Okay, and I need to make a few changes here. So I wanted these two things to be grouped together. So I'm going to put a parentheses there, and I wanted these next two things to be grouped together. So I'll put a parentheses there, and that should fix that. Cool. So now I'm going to do the same thing pretty much with these next couple things. So this is the x part. So I'm going to copy and paste the x part, and I'm going to replace this with that, and then I'm going to copy and paste the y part, and I'm going to replace this with that. Okay, So right now I'm storing stuff in the grid, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be that much easier. However, oops, I keep doing that in Gamemaker. However, it will, and I'll show you in just a second here. So I'm going to save this and run it just to make sure everything's going to run the way it should. Oh, okay. So create array line 4. Oh, okay. So let's just call this var array then. The way Gamemaker makes arrays is super weird to me. Okay, cool. So I still have my board filling up. Everything else is going to work just like it did before. No real issues for the moment. So there we go. Now, why we want to do the array is going to make our life even easier when we get to our check for matches. So right now, our check for matches is happening on every single dot, every single frame. So rather than doing that, I'm going to check for matches from the game manager, so it's only one object that's doing it and not all of the objects that are doing it. So I'm going to add another event to my game manager. This is going to be an alarm event, and I'm going to call it alarm 2. And at description is going to be check the board for matches. And a lot of this is going to be kind of a repeat of what we've done before, but now we're going to be using that grid to our advantage. So to make my life even easier, I'm going to make a script for this. So over here, I'm going to create a new script, and I'm going to call this s underscore check for matches. Okay, so check for matches is going to take a couple arguments here. First, we're going to need to have a width, which is going to be argument 0, and we're going to need to have a height, which is argument 1. These arguments, in case I didn't explain it, which I didn't, are the variables that are passed in. And you can have, I think, up to like 15 of them. So like here in the game manager, when I initialized the game and I had width comma height, this width automatically becomes argument 0 because it's the first thing. This height automatically becomes argument 1. If I added another thing, like say, I don't know, 20, it doesn't change anything. In fact, it's not allowed because I don't have anything for what argument 2 is. So that's what those arguments are, in case you were wondering. Okay, and then here I'm going to do for var I is equal to 0, I is less than width, I plus plus. For var j is equal to 0, j is less than height, j plus plus. What I want to do here is I want to take this individual piece and I want to look to the left and to the right. So if global.grid ij dot column is greater than 0, then I can look greater than 0, and global.grid ij dot column is less than width minus 1. Then I can check both left and right. So check left and right. And then I can do the same thing with the row. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it down here. So I want to say if the row is greater than 0, and if the row is less than height minus 1. And then instead of left and right, this is going to be up and down. Okay, and I'm actually going to create another check here. I want to make sure that this actually exists. So, and the reason I want to do that is we'll have blank spaces and stuff later on where we won't have anything in the grid for that spot. So we'll say if global.grid ij is not equal to no one. And then I'll just encapsulate that, grab all of this, and indent it. All right, cool. Now, for the check left and right, it's the same logic we were using. I'm just now using the grid, and I'm only calling it from one place, which means it's going to be much more memory efficient. So for my check left and right, I want to say if global.grid I minus 1 j is not equal to no one, and global.grid I plus 1j, so the pieces that are to the left and to the right, is not equal to no one. So if they both exist, if global.grid I minus 1j dot sprite is equal to, let's store this really quickly. Let's say var current equals global.grid ij. So we're storing a reference to whichever piece we're currently looking at. And then we're going to check to see if its sprite is equal to current.sprite and global.grid I plus 1 j dot sprite is equal to current.sprite. So if both those things are true, then I want to set them both to be matched. So global.grid I minus 1 j dot is matched true, and then I want to do the same thing for I plus 1. Equals true, and then I want to do the same thing for the current. And let's just make sure really quickly here that that's the right variable I'm using. So let's go to my dot object and create. So I thought I used is matched, but apparently I did not. Oh, that's right. I used just the alpha channel. Okay, cool. So instead of doing is matched equals true, I'm going to do dot image underscore alpha equals 0.2. And then I'll do the same thing to the other image alphas. So I'll copy that, paste that there, and paste that here. Okay, cool. Now for my checking up and down, it's pretty much the same logic. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it in right here. And instead of it being I minus 1, it's going to be j minus 1. And instead of it being I plus 1, it's going to be j plus 1. Instead of being I minus 1 down here, it's j minus 1. And I plus 1 is j plus 1. And then this is going to be I j minus 1. I j plus 1. Alright, cool. So, alright, so this is going to go through, check everything, and then if it is matched, it's going to make it matched. So now, instead of having my alarm 0 running all the time on every dot, I'm going to turn off my alarm 0 here, and I'm only going to have it run if the two pieces are where they should be. So in my step event, when I'm directly setting, I want to turn the game manager's alarm 2 on. So I'm going to say O underscore. Actually, how about I don't do it there? How about I instead do it when I left released? Okay, so instead of saying, so alarm 1 equals 15 and O underscore game manager dot alarm 2 equals 5. So I'll save that. Oops. Save that. And let's see if this works so far. Okay, cool. Things didn't break right away. Uh-oh. So, game manager alarm 2 equals 5. Oh, that's why. It's because I'm not resetting their position when I move them. So, here, when I'm changing the dots and rows, actually I can do this in the step code. When I'm moving the pieces, so I'm in the dot in the step code, when I'm doing this point distance to move it, I'm going to say if global.grid column row does not equal ID, then global.grid column row equals ID. So I'm just going to make sure that this piece is what it should be. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it into the Y version so that it's checking that too. Okay, cool. So I'm going to save this. Gosh, keep doing that. And then hit play. And let's see if we broke it. Alright, cool. So, still not checking. What did I do wrong? So, removing it there. Setting the column in the row. Oh, alarm 2 isn't doing anything. S underscore, check for matches, width, comma, height. Good lord. I can be stupid sometimes. So let's save that. Hit play. Let's test it out now. Okay. Aha, fatal error. Check for matches line 30. Alright, so down here, check for matches line 30. What did I do? I was checking up and down. Current dot sprite. Is it not sprite that I'm supposed to use? Is it image? So if I go, hey, it's sprite underscore index. Stupid me. So I'm going to replace sprite with sprite underscore index. I should have noticed it wasn't green. So I'm going to copy this and just paste it everywhere. Actually, let's just make my life easier. Command F, sprite replace with sprite index. Okay, cool. That's better. So save, hit play, and let's test it out now. Check for matches line 16. Oh, good lord. There we go. Okay, cool. Save again, hit play. Man, I am out of it today, making all kinds of errors. At least you guys get to see that even somebody who knows at least part of what they're doing screws up a bunch. There we go. Okay, cool. So everything's working like it should now. This is going to be part 1 of changing everything to the grid. I promise you, it seems like this is the wrong way to do it, I know, but it's going to make our life so much easier very soon. So yeah, just hold on and we'll be good. So if you have any questions, you can leave them down below. I'll have the second part to this up very, very soon. You can follow me on Twitter to find out when I post a new video. You can join my Discord, where I'm chatting pretty much every day. And if you learned something, please feel free to go ahead and like, and have yourselves a wonderful day.